about $22 million and the Pentagon has a UFO program. It's about there's an entity out there. There's some kind of non-human intelligence that's living with us on this fucking planet. I'm sorry, I'm getting all wound up.
Do you believe in aliens?
I'm absolutely convinced. That's all there is to it.
Do you also believe that UFOs have come to Earth?
There has been and is an existing presence, an ET presence. And I spent millions and millions. I probably spent more as an individual than anybody else in the United States has ever spent on this subject.
I have met with very high-level people that really, really are in a position to know what's going on. People that have dumped millions and millions and millions of dollars into researching this stuff. People that you probably know about.
Is it risky for you to say, in public that you believe in UFOs and aliens?
I don't care.
You don't worry that some people will say, did you hear that guy? He sounds like he's crazy.
I don't care.
Why not?
It's not going to make a difference. It's not going to change reality of what I know.
Do you imagine that in our space travels we will encounter other forms of intelligent life?
You don't have to go anywhere.
You can find it here.
Yeah.
Where exactly?
It's just like right under people's noses. Oh my gosh. Wow.
That have shared stuff with me off the record that were so out there, I just went, you gotta be kidding me. This is really what you think is happening? And is this like speculation or conjecture? It's like, no, this is like research at the highest level. And it's like, I'll give you a hint, and that's about as far as I want to go with it. And look, I'm not endorsing this, and I'm not saying that I believe it. I'm just saying that the people that I heard it from are people in a position to know. Like I can't dismiss it because of the source. And he told me in no uncertain terms that they're walking among us.
Well, Don, it began for me in 1963 when I was assigned to the Supreme Headquarters Allied Powers in Europe. I arrived in the summer of '63 and I was assigned to the Operations Division. I was further assigned to what we call SHOC, the War Room, the Supreme Headquarters Operations Center. And at that time I was given a cosmic top secret clearance, which was and still is the highest level of security access that NATO has. When I was assigned to the War Room, I learned that a study had been initiated in 1961, and everybody was talking about it. They were gossiping about it. And the subject was UFOs, and that intrigued me a bit. When that study was concluded in 1964, and it was published, and I was still working in the War Room at that time, I had access to this document. I had a chance to read it. And having been exposed to it, I must tell you honestly that my life has never ever quite been the same. Because I read first-hand reports, verifiable NATO military material that indicated that the UFOs were not only real, that they represented something far beyond anything I had ever imagined before. When the study was concluded in '64, they concluded that there were 4 different groups apparently coming and visiting us. Out of those 4 different groups, one group looked exactly like we do, so much so that they could sit beside you in a restaurant, or in an airplane, or in a theater, and you'd never know. And that particular point bothered the military guys a lot. The point being that some of these people from somewhere could be walking up and down the corridors of SHAPE headquarters, or they could be walking up and down the corridors of the Pentagon. One day at lunch, a lieutenant colonel made the remark, he says, Jesus, do you realize they could even be in the White House? And there was a little forced laughter at that point, I remember, because a lot of us over the years have had some misgivings about the occupants of the White House. But the point I'm making is that the idea that aliens could be here in our midst bothered the military, because if you're not paranoid when you go into the service, you're certainly trained very quickly to be so. It's the nature of the military mind, I think, to be paranoid. But that was only part of the story. The SHAPE conclusions in '64 were that there were 4 groups that we knew of. They were apparently interplanetary. Some very likely were interstellar. They even concluded that some of them could be intergalactic. When I retired in 1976, many of our military people knew at that point that we were not simply dealing with visitations from people from other planets or star systems. They had concluded by 76 that some of these visitors very well might be multidimensional in their source.
What does it mean to be human? And before you answer that question, I ask that you just take a moment and really think about it. What does it mean to be human? Is it the fact that we're made of flesh and blood? We have a body? Well, that's not really that uncommon. We share that in common with many other living things on this planet. So maybe it's because we can think for ourselves, right? Keeping in mind there's some invertebrates that can do that as well. So again, not that uncommon. So maybe it's because we walk on two legs and we're bipedal, and that's what sets us aside from everybody else and everything else. And, then again, that's a trait that we share with a common ostrich. So I don't think that's what makes us human. No, I think being human is perhaps one of the easiest things that we can feel and understand innately, but yet one of the most difficult things to be able to describe. And perhaps that is the one thing, being human, that sets us aside from every other life form on this planet. But what if for a moment mankind wasn't singular? Maybe just for a moment it's mankind's, plural. Are we as a society even prepared to have that conversation? What if the things that make us human most, like emotions, love, empathy, are not necessarily unique traits to humans within the universe? Maybe other things can experience that too, and maybe the definition of being human isn't having 2 arms, 2 legs, and looking like this, or having a body, or having hair or no hair. Maybe being human is far more profound than that, and maybe those traits aren't unique to us. And so for the past decade, I spent a good portion of my time pondering that very question, along with some very incredibly talented individuals within the U.S. government. And our reason for pondering this very question was due to our knowledge of some very extraordinary observations and data collected on behalf of the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, or you probably know it as ATIP. And what we learned during this time was nothing less than remarkable.